Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar run by a-Creet. They will be introducing their Argus social intel and talking about how to shape the information environment in the era of great power conflict. We are happy to host this as Deep Tech Showcase. And I'll let you take it from here. Argus team or a-Creet team.
Okay, thanks a lot, Brian. So, hi everyone. I'm Jason Kirby. I'm with a-Creet. With me in our office here in Manhattan, we have our marketing and product teams are with me to show you the progress that we've made with our product, Argus Social Intel. So, a bit of background about myself. I've been with the company for about 3 years. And prior to joining a-Creet, I was in the U.S. military. I oversaw Air Force Special Operations in the Pacific, and certainly in a region very familiar with great power competition and conflict. And we're continuing to see that evolve in the European theater as well, with the Ukraine conflict too. So the product that we have for you today, if you want to proceed to the next slide. Thank you, Dan. Is intended to help us and help the defense industry as well as the Department of Defense be able to identify threats, mitigate those threats in the open source intelligence environment. So before we delve into that a little bit further, a bit more about the company, a-Creet itself on the next slide has been around since 2017 and initially started in commercial use cases focusing on fintech, as well as insurance and e-commerce. And one of the more interesting products that we've worked on is the development of a social media platform intended to identify up-and-coming music artists before they've signed with a competing label. So it's conducting sentiment analysis around the commentary that is being seen by these unsigned artists and bring those to the attention of analysts. Since I joined, it was very clear to us, the other members of the federal team here, that type of technology, which is really a targeting use case, is just as relevant towards a defense use case as well, where we're focusing on our adversaries and their messaging, as well as our messaging and the relevant audiences, and using that as a near real-time indicator of threats as well. And what we've seen too is we have tremendous interest for commercial use cases, for companies that are focused on brand protection and sentiment around their brand, and being able to identify key influencers that are either having positive sentiment around their commentary or negative commentary as well. So we've been in development of this product for well over a year with U.S. Special Operations. And we're also working with the U.S. Army as well as the U.S. Air Force on continuing to develop this capability. We're pleased to present it to you today to get the word out about this capability and its availability now to be able to trial and evaluate the platform, both for defense use cases as well as commercial use cases. So through the course of this call, we welcome any questions that you'd like to drop into the chat. And then we'll probably take about the last third of this call to address your questions. But that'll give us a little bit more time because we expect there may be quite a few questions and they may be a bit technical. Our company is about 130 employees strong. Like I mentioned, we're here in Manhattan, but we also have our research center in Boston, as well as our federal team, which is located in Old Town Alexandria. We've garnered a number of awards over the last several years, as you see there in the lower left, with the Gartner Cool Vendor Award, as well as our compliance with NIST standards. And we most recently received the AI Tech Award, which was received by our Chief Product Officer for Best in Big Data AI. And we're progressing very quickly to FedRAMP moderate compliance as well. So if we can go to the next slide, Dan, please. Okay, so a bit about the social media monitoring that we're going to provide and outline for you here is, what we're looking to achieve here is the ability to monitor open source intelligence like we never have before, be able to monitor that in near real time. And so Obviously, there's a lot of chatter about that right now, but a couple of cases in point in the past where a capability like this could have provided indications and warnings of threats and provided decision makers with decision-making space. And that's really the value proposition of what we provide here, is the ability to understand the information environment, shape the information environment for those organizations that have a responsibility. Not all responsibilities have that obligation, responsibility, and reduce risk to forces by understanding how that information environment is changing. So a case in point, September 11th of 2012 in Benghazi with the attack on the US Embassy, having an open source intelligence platform that could detect the attack on the US Embassy by mortar fire, which is how the attack initially occurred. Very helpful potentially that that reporting could occur on social media platforms before it's reported, say, on CNN. And for those that have been around, and I was over in Africa Command, that was a very tenuous time. But just think about a capability that not only can provide near real-time indications and warning, but an indication that there's a trend that is indicating that there's been a change in the information environment. So the terror group that conducted that attack, Ansar al-Sharia, is very active to this day on social media. And in fact, in the days preceding that event, we're actively promoting anti-American sentiment and commentary around the US presence in Libya. And that was a very strong indication and warning that potentially there was a threat to US forces that was being observed in open source intelligence and maybe by more traditional means of national intelligence collection. That signal was not being identified. That's the capability that we're talking about here. So if you go to the next slide, what we're looking to do is not to replace the analyst or the operator that's sitting on an operations floor, but instead what we're intending to do is augment their ability, their tacit knowledge that they've had from their training as an intelligence analyst or an operator, and make their job performance easier and more efficient as a result. So this is intended to make their lives easier, to perform more efficiently. And we've now reached the point with the implementation of the AI components of the model that the system itself will provide summaries of what it is seeing in the information environment. We're going to provide you with a demonstration of that capability. And for those organizations that counter misinformation, the system will provide suggested narratives that counter what is being seen in the information environment. As we know, our adversaries move much more quickly than we do in developing misinformation narratives. And having this ability to stay up to speed and in fact stay in advance of those narratives is a capability that we've not seen offered by competing companies out there. So that's the key value proposition here, is that this enables the operationalization, I should say, sorry about that, of open source intelligence in a way that we've never seen before. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay, terrific. So what I'd like to do from here is I'm going to hand it over to Alex Merrill, our head of product, to give a bit of technical outline quite briefly about the key technical differentiation of our product. And then we're going to dive right into the demonstration. Following that, we'll take your questions. And then after that, we'll talk about the ways that you are able to access the platform if you get interested in trying it out yourself. So with that, Alex, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, everyone. I'm Alex Merrill. I'm a director of product at a-Creet and have been working on social media intelligence for the past 5 years, and specifically on Argus Social for the past 2 years. We've been working on allowing the generalization for anyone to go after any of their interest or mission spaces that they need to at that moment in time. So the first part of Argus Social, and one of the main parts, is the ability to map and track these networks. And these networks I'll show you in the product can be either accounts that you know of that you trust in a certain domain, or an event that happens either on cyber or in reality, in the physical world, that you want to be able to map the reaction of that on social media. That's where, once you have those networks built, Argus Social will continually analyze that growing universe of all of the multimodal video, audio, images, and mostly in text to predict the viral narratives. And I'll show you how the reason for that, why we have these networks, is to look at how the information spreads, what's the information supply chain, where people are getting their information, who's connected to who works together to coordinate and make narratives that they want to go viral. That's where Argus itself can read, listen, understand what people are talking about, the meaning behind it, not just this is going viral, this is a keyword going viral, but this narrative is going viral, this is why, and this is who is spreading it. That's when the second one here is these are what we call neo-influencers, accounts that don't just have a lot of followers, but in this context, in their networks, their communities, they're most likely to create content that's going to be promoted by these social media algorithms that we see today. What they're really good at is what they see as the flywheel of engagement. So if something's going viral, they know how to hop into it, use that for their own interests, or they band together in coordinated fashions to create those viral moments by basically hijacking the algorithms. That's where the last bullet on the top, we want to, and you'll see today, how we want to counter disinformation and misinformation by using the experts that are using the product to see something going viral that they believe to be misinformation, using that with an agent to say, go find who spread this information, map out the network, and continue to look for the next coordinated behavior from that network for the next time they're trying to attack with some kind of misinformation. That's where we really rely on the tacit knowledge of the expert as the ground truth, where Argus Social can then autonomously build these knowledge graphs and then reason, predict, and counter, or at least give you ideas of how to counter all this information at superhuman scale. So Jason, I can, from there, I'll hop in if I can share my screen and I'll go into the product itself.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to start showing briefly how you as a user would build a network. As you can see, these are all different networks, or we can think of them all as different agents that were created that went and built these networks that are continuously growing knowledge graphs that have underlying knowledge bases that the agent can reference and you can work with either by clicking around on the screen or interacting with via chat. And this is where you'd go to a new network. This is where you see the agent is named Kepler, and you start off by naming a network. Today we're going to do Ukraine. As of today, you'll see on the next slide the other social medias that we're adding in. Today we have Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I'm going to focus, this first use case was an actual real event that happened on Twitter. And now this is where we've named the agent, selected our sources, and now we're actually going to provide the agent with who it is, what it's responsible for, and what it's going to do. Just in the sake of time, I'm going to paste in what we had done in this use case. So here we're saying this actually happened on May 22nd. This year, a fake image of a Pentagon explosion went viral on Twitter and caused a $500 billion market sell-off, and all of the focus of that narrative on that day went to that explosion and not other events going on in the world. So in this case, I went and created a new agent saying, you're an analyst focused on mapping out the networks of accounts that shared the viral image of the Pentagon explosion and made it go viral. I will give you the data needed to find them. Once you find the accounts that made the content go viral, go into their networks, find where they're getting the information, who is influencing them, and who they are influencing based on their followings and interactions. In this case, I'm going to choose an event-driven network because we don't know who shared this information, but we do know that the information went viral, or this event went viral. That's where you choose. You can have different windows. You can do a custom range down to a specific day. So let's say on November 13th and 14th, everyone that was talking about this specific, or who made this specific event go viral, you choose your date, and then you give the content, keywords, phrases, hashtags relevant that would help you find those voices. And then you can select their followers. From there, you can go back as far in time as you need to. You go back as far as you need to. The agent can go back on all these different social networks. The reason why you want to go back in time is because you're going to give the agent context up until today to understand who has been interacting with who in this network, what information has been going viral, what does this network care about, what is their stance on certain subjects. So up until today, it can start to even begin to predict what information moves through this network in certain fashions. And this is different for all different communities across the world, different geographies and interests. So now actually, going into what happened with this network, this is what we've now called, we relabeled the Ukrainian Disinformation Network, because that's where we saw a lot of the content that was created, where actually looking back in the research of the Pentagon explosion, there were 14 accounts that shared the image all within about 30 seconds of each other at 9:30 in the morning. Around 9:45, it was followed up where Medvedev and Russia Times also retweeted or shared that image saying, oh, this is interesting. And by 10 a.m. or at 10 a.m. or it was like 10:01, you saw this huge drop off in the US financial markets. From here, what you've seen is the agent took those initial accounts, as I said in this last, you saw in the last slide, and it starts to see over time, who are they all following? Where are they all mutually getting information from? Who is influencing those accounts? Who are they influencing? Who else are they interacting with, mentioning, replying to, etc. And then also taking into account what type of influencer they are, like a neo-influencer, what do they talk about? You'll see this on another network I show you. I really want to find specific types of accounts. From there, the agent has gone back in time or up until date. We actually stopped running this network and we switched on. We built a new one for a more broad use case, but that's where you see some of the posts are down. We just recently stopped it. We can still see a ton of information though. And this is all of the almost 200,000 posts by these 863 accounts that were focused around Ukrainian disinformation. And then, but really the focus here is for the agent to identify specific narratives that are going on. Here you can see it. 128, you can think of conversations. Every day, the agent looks to map out different conversations that are going on. And then each day it looks to see if a conversation is going on today, is that connected to anything going on in the past, allowing it to show how narratives have shifted over time. What you then find in this knowledge graph, just I'll quickly go through the nodes. We have commenters, influencers, and then our Argus's AI is picking out, as of just today, we have more entities available, companies being talked about, locations being talked about, and products that are included in these narratives. If I zoom out, what you start to find though is these accounts, these narratives where you start to see like lots of, edges and connections around them. These are the accounts that are able to be in the center of a lot of these narratives. So these are like the lightning rods. If they're talking about a certain subject, either they hop into a conversation later and then it goes viral, or they're the ones kicking it off and getting a ton of engagement and reaction around it. This is where the agent starts to find if this account is talking about something, and especially if multiple of the same accounts are talking about the same narrative at the same time, it has a higher likelihood of going viral. And so when we talk about viral, it's all about mind share or attention coming from, sorry about that, we do, I don't know if, as Jason said, we're FedRAMP compliant. So a lot of times I've been on here for, I think, over a half an hour, so it will log me out. Hopefully it'll stay on the rest of the demo. So as it loads, that's the idea, is to predict virality. It's to predict attention that a specific network is going to be paying attention to today and over the upcoming days. So one of these narratives that I'll show you, this was, I think it was, you can imagine a lot of it is around Ukraine. Here we see, they're talking about a conflict coup attempt in Sudan, Russian naval and US involvement in that. And you'll see how over time, how this narrative is evolving, how much attention is the network paying to it. You can also see these are the conversations that happen day over day at that time, how the agent is connecting them, how this narrative is changing. You can also look into the specific raw posts that are contributing to this, as well as the influential accounts that are participating, that the agent is seeing as these are the accounts that are promoting this narrative. Now, if I wanted to get into the reasons, what we would say like the what behind the whys in these narratives. So rather, what you've seen maybe in social listening over the past decade would be you put in a few keywords and then you see other trending keywords. So you might see what started off as Pentagon and explosion, and then later you'd see Ukraine is like probably a top keyword, or Russia or the US. That doesn't really, we don't see that as that helpful. What we want to be able to do now is really understand the what, the why is this narrative happening, or what is the stance behind this network towards specific items. So just from what we've been able to see so far, it's very much a Russian aligned coordinated network of accounts. I can now go in and I want to know, what I'm asking the agent is, what type of Russian propaganda is being spread through the Ukrainian disinformation network? expand on the pro-Russian narratives that are negative against the U.S. military assets, including Patriot missiles and U.S. personnel. So what you're seeing on screen right now, this is one network from one Pentagon explosion network that we hope that will continue to monitor, looking for coordinated events. But at the same time, you could create networks like this in different geographies, different topics, and the Kepler meta agent can view into all of them all at the same time. And you can understand the different stances, let's say, from might be similar interests, but different geographies will have different viewpoints of that. And that's where you're able to go in and understand at that time. So let's say as the agent's typing out now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can read what it's saying. Okay, let me let it finish. It's still going for a little bit. There we go. Okay, so here's what the agent came back with when I wanted to know, again, what is the Russian propaganda and pro versus negative against the U.S. military and their assets. So according to several posts, there are pro-Russian narratives that criticize the U.S. military, like the Patriot missiles. There's narratives that claim that American-made smart bombs are falling victim to Russian electronic jamming. So this is going against the U.S. It's also alleged that U.S. supplied HIMARS mobile multiple rocket launchers being forced off course by Russian jamming techniques. So here's an interesting narrative that they're talking about how Russia is able to jam U.S. assets. And furthermore, they're saying that leaked Pentagon documents suggest that Russia has a secret weapon to disconnect armed forces of Ukraine from the internet. So this is all the stance, but the narratives that this Russian-aligned network is promoting, trying to weaken the U.S. and Ukrainian interests. The agent is also saying that there's narratives are accusing the U.S. of spreading propaganda and misinformation. One post claims that Western news stations in Australia propagated false narratives that Russia was responsible for an attack using S-300 missiles. Another post suggesting that all money poured into combating Russian propaganda has resulted in legitimate criticism being labeled as Russian propaganda. What you're able to see here, we've identified, and we can continue to prompt this agent and understand, like, what is this Russian line network saying at any time that could hurt our interests as well as Ukrainian interests. Now, in order to counter this and all of the narratives that are continue to come out every day, all the time, consistently, I can now go to the agent and I want to, based on the narratives in the last response, write 5 tweets that counter them in support of the United States and U.S. personnel. I want to make sure to reference the actual content and respond to the anti-U.S. content. The tweets, I want them to focus on Ukraine and how Ukraine is going to prevail in the war with our continued support. This is where the agency is able to now take my prompt, and it's going to start to reason on everything it knows from our current conversation and everything else you can imagine in the brain that it has developed around this network. So it's a lot of these you've already seen in the last post, but it's really starting to base itself in the propaganda, anti-US, anti-Ukrainian propaganda, so it can come up with content ideas that you can use in your own responses, or just at least something to base off of. So let's say the second one, despite allegations of Russian jamming techniques affected U.S. supplied HIMARS, Ukraine military remains resilient. The U.S. stands firmly with Ukraine, providing ongoing support to ensure the success in the war. And again, you as the experts could probably have a better idea of exactly the response or other types of narratives that you're seeing or you want to know about, that you want to understand, not necessarily what is going on in reality, but what is this network of Russian-aligned accounts trying to promote in cyberspace that could affect our interests and the Ukrainian position. So from that, I want to shift over to another type of network where you now use your tacit knowledge for accounts in a certain domain, geography, or in these interests that you trust. So in this case, if I go back to create a new network, these are going to be on accounts that you know about, you trust. That could either be like to help to stop misinformation, to understand reality, or it could be a specific type of group, a Russian group that you know about. Let's say some of like the leaders of Al-Shabaab. If there's going to be troops going into Somalia, and you want to know who are the biggest influencers in Al-Shabaab, you can have the agent go in, map out that network, and consistently understand what narratives they're promoting. In this case, what we're going to create is an OSINT network of accounts that we know of. Again, today I'm just doing mostly Twitter. I'll show you a quick TikTok network that was built in the commercial industry just briefly in a moment. But now I'm going to go with an account-driven network. These are key accounts that you've already tracked to find other voices you should care about and understand where are they getting their information, something that you don't have to go in and constantly scroll through social media all the time to understand the what, the why, and what narratives are going on. So this is a little bit longer of a prompt because I really want this agent to be accurate based on what I know. So I'm going in and saying, you're an OSINT analyst and you are focused on finding the narratives around open source information events sourced by objective intelligence reporters that report as close to reality as possible with attribution in all of their posts and reporting. I will give you the accounts that I know that you can trust. Go through their network to find any other accounts that have influence over this group and are also focused on defense, war, conflict, cyber, disinformation, conspiracies, airplane and ship tracking. Everyone on this call, you might have other ideas of like the exact, but this is where exact what you're looking for. Now the agent's going to go through these networks and specifically look for any accounts that are talking about this. So they all might follow Elon Musk, but they're not going to, Elon Musk won't be added in here unless he's talking about all of these types of events. So next, I want the agent to map out the interactions and influence of this OSINT group and report back to me. This is where I go to the account-driven network. I can list the accounts I want, and this is where you could also include, at the same time, if you want to do TikTok and Instagram, you can put those accounts here as well. Choose your dates, and then kick off the network. In this case, when this network went live, it's a really small network. But what we found, let me just get to the full brain of this network. What we found is that even when you find the 30 most influential accounts in context for certain interests, there's a ton of information, a ton of narratives. These are the neo-influencers that are able to get ahead of information, go spread information on top of narratives, and get to millions of people from the viral content that they're promoting. In this case, this OSINT network are all, I'd say these are accounts that are continuously looking for these types of war, conflicts, political strife, riots, missiles, anything like that. And they're reporting back with attribution, links, URLs, images, and reporting to the best ability to be as close to reality as possible. From here, if I go, there was a use case from a couple of weeks ago when it was a viral video of an Israeli helicopter being shot down by Hamas. And it's really hard to see even from a human to decide if it was true or not. And I don't have the time to go through thousands of posts, blogs, news articles to figure out what's going on. I just want to go to the OSINT network and say, was there an Israeli helicopter shot down by Hamas based on the tweets in this Hamas? Actually, I put the wrong network in. I might have to run this question again. We do have another Hamas propaganda network. I want to make sure it's looking at the OSINT network. So if you actually, it was a mistake of mine, I apologize. If it's going to look at the Hamas propaganda network, it's probably going to say that there was a helicopter shot down. Yeah, so there's evidence from tweets in the Hamas propaganda network that suggests an Israeli helicopter. Okay, I'm sorry about this mistake, but it's actually going to show why there's so much misinformation being shot down or being spread. So that was what the Hamas propaganda network is saying, that there was a helicopter shot down. They're posting videos of a Hamas shooting down an Israeli warplane. Now I'm going to make sure that the agent is focused on the OSINT network. And I'll repost this question to get the response that I would expect as an analyst to make sure that we're getting as close to reality as possible. So now I'm going and saying, was there an Israeli helicopter shot down by Hamas based on the tweets in the OSINT network? And this is where, again, we're not necessarily saying what's misinformation, what's truth or not. We're relying on specific networks that are going to be aligned or have stance. The OSINT network we've created, we believe, is to be apolitical, non-biased, objective truth. And now when I ask specifically for the OSINT network, the agent's coming back and saying, based on the OSINT network, there's no evidence to suggest a helicopter was shot down. While there were reports of Israeli helicopters being shot down by small arms fire and anti-aircraft fire from near the Gaza Strip, all helicopters were able to return to base and land safely. And that's also giving attribution to one of the bigger influencers, Scent Defender. Additionally, a video circulating of an Israeli helicopter shot down was confirmed to be fake. However, it should be noted that Hamas is claimed to have shot down. So really interesting use case. I'm sorry I made that mistake, but I'm glad you can see you can continue to create as many networks around the world based on your tacit knowledge. And what you're going to see is different stances coming out from different networks, geographies, and interests. Now, I, as an analyst, am able to see like, okay, Hamas is promoting this misinformation that helicopters being shot down, while the objective truth from these reporters is saying that that didn't happen. So a good use case to show how these tacit knowledge bases are helpful in identifying and combating misinformation. Really quickly, that both what you saw today were both Twitter networks. All these networks can be combined through the agent. So you can see what I could have asked, what are the differences between the Hamas network and OSINT on Israeli helicopters being shot down? And it'd be able to look at both knowledge bases at the same time to give me a truthful answer. You can also, as I've shown, you can create multiple, you can add multiple different social media platforms into the same network, where what we're looking for in this case is species jumps of narratives and images, URLs and links being shared, and let's say jumping from Telegram to Twitter. That's something that we'll have in the upcoming months. When we add Telegram in, you'll see that it's on the next slide. Just for a quick view of what would happen if we were to create a TikTok network. So I'm going to, this is just really quickly, this was built for the commercial industry, for health and wellness, for a major vitamin company. And if we were to extend this to the entire knowledge base of this agent, you can see how much information, as this network has continued to grow, it took in a handful of accounts that they had trusted in the health and wellness industry. But once we have with TikTok, Instagram, and then the following social medias like YouTube, we are able to get the comments of the audience. Where Twitter, there are comments, but in the replies, we basically treat everything as its own post. So as this knowledge base is populating, what we're able to see here is not just the influencers and the posts that are being that are being posted on TikTok and Instagram, but the massive audience reactions from all of those comments that create a much more rich universe and ability to understand what are neo-influencers promoting and how are their audiences reacting, and then using the agent that I showed on the chat to really dive deeper and understand what you're looking for in specific mission spaces. So with that, that's going to conclude the demo for today. Jason, if you can, I'll stop sharing my screen if you want to pull up the next slide so I can go through what's coming next.
Okay, terrific, Alex. Dan, if you can share.
I think I have to, sorry about this. Okay, I found stop share. Sorry about that.
Here we go. Okay, there we go.
Awesome. So yeah, what I just showed, we had X or Twitter, as well as Instagram and TikTok are live in the product today. And we're going as fast as we can. A lot of these sources we've already built over time for our other products, but what we really, the focus right now is allowing the agents that we've built to access these social media profiles to create their own knowledge graphs, knowledge bases around them at scale with any user that wants to build their network. So what's coming in Q1 and as fast as we can, Weibo, Telegram, Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, and then in the future, the ability for you to bring in your own data. So either any social media you've picked up in the past, any other type of data you want to bring in that will make the narratives that we have much more rich, as well as news data is coming as well. One thing that we're really excited about, you saw that the agent's ability to respond to the questions I had in chat, but it's going to be the ability for you to never, you can log in, but we want to also allow you to interact and get information from these networks on an ongoing basis. And that's going to be from scheduled report generation that will be featured in Q1. This is where at the beginning, you can basically schedule at what time you want these reports to come in via email, and the agent will send summaries, who's gaining an influence, what narratives are gaining in attention, what narratives are likely to go viral. Those will all be surfaced from all the different networks you've populated. And even more importantly, is going to be the viral narrative prediction and wargaming, something we've been focused on for a long time and are very excited to see the power of what these networks can do. And what you're able to see on screen today was where you saw these centers of influence that are able to spread narratives. Every day, the agent's learning and will continue to learn from your networks and allow the agent to understand based on underlying features and metadata from each narrative, based on the type of information and the influencers, the engagement from the communities early on, how likely is this narrative likely to go viral, And then this wargaming will be the ability for you to test out, okay, if this were to happen, if this event were to happen, or if this type of content were to spread, what would this, how would this network, how would they take it? What would they do with this type of information? Even getting a little bit farther this point, I don't think we have it here, but starting to use the AI to start to not understand how viral something's going to go in the wargaming, but also what are they, how are they going, like, what are they going to say about this based on all of their conversations in the past? What will this new event do, and how will they respond based on all of their interactions in the past? The last part, I think we'll open it up, and what we've, a big difference from social listening is because social media has become so much more algorithmic and media driven with video and audio, our agents' ability to watch the videos, take all those recordings into the narratives itself will open up a lot more data from Instagram, YouTube, all the videos on Twitter, etc. So that's where social media, video transcription, and summarization will all three of these will be live in Q1.
Yeah, terrific. Just if I could add to that, I'll double tap on that for a moment. I mean, the real differentiator here from social listening platforms is that analytical prediction. And in our work with the U.S. military, that's been the key area where they've been interested in what a-Creet has to offer, because we've demonstrated it for commercial use cases, and now we're simply configuring it for defense use cases as well. So that ability to be able to have additional foresight into what is going on in the open source environment. What we're developing here is some very cutting edge technology that empowers analysts and operators to simply perform better. So the system operates 24 hours a day, and when thresholds are exceeded, it sends notifications to them to let them know that there's been a significant change in the environment. So if they're checking a couple of times a day, say at the beginning of their workday and the end, irregardless, across 24 hours, any significant change in the information environment that they're responsible for, whether that's a particular area of responsibility or a particular theme itself, they'll get those notifications and be able to provide those to decision makers at a much faster pace than previously allowed. So if we can go to the next slide, Dan. In terms of the availability of this capability, so we're currently on contract with U.S. Special Operations in developing this capability, as well as the U.S. Army. And we have significant interest from other services as well. We've got a number of contract vehicles in place for government agencies to purchase and license this capability. So that includes, really, I'll just start at the bottom, I suppose. So the Management and Business Analytical Systems, that's for the Naval Information Warfare Center. So that's a vehicle specific to the Navy. The next one above is the National Security Innovation Network. So that's through our partner, Huntington Ingalls. And then Soft Tops with our partner, CACI, is for Special Operations Forces. And then lastly, probably our largest umbrella contract that we have available for this platform is through the Chief Digital AI Officer, and that's through the Tradewinds Marketplace. So those are all viable contract vehicles. The bottom line is that the competitive selection process has been completed at this point. So for those agencies that immediately want to start trying out this capability, there are vehicles that are readily available right now. We'd love to have additional agencies try out this capability. Please don't hesitate to contact me. You'll see my contact information in just a moment, to try and evaluate the platform, give us feedback on what is working for you, or what you would like to see added to the platform. And then we can continue the conversation from there. We're always looking, to the point at the bottom of the slide, for additional partnerships, because there are more advanced capabilities we'd love to talk with you about one-on-one that we'd like to develop to be included in the platform over the coming year as well. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so there's my contact information. You see it at the bottom, my email address, or you can contact us at sales@a-Creet.ai. I think we do have a couple of questions that have come in through the Google Doc as well, so we can probably turn to those in just a second. But for those that are dialed in that want to ask any questions, now is the time. You'll see there should be a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and you can just drop your comments in there by name or anonymously, and then we'd be happy to field those questions. So let's see, JP, do we have any questions so far?
We do. Go from here.
Yeah, I can't read it from here. That's terrific. Thanks a lot for that. Okay. First question that we have is, and Alex will probably be turning to you for all of these, is how long does it typically take to set up a network?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the time that it varies based on how big of a network you want and how far back in time you need to go. So for, let's say, a large network of 1,000 accounts and you want to go back a year, like that could take a few weeks just to make sure that all of that data comes in. What that will allow, though, is some potentially richer narratives and a better understanding of the agent of all the information that has gone viral, what narratives have gone viral in this network up until today, and allow for better predictions. However, if there's something just happened, you wanted to know right away what's going on with a specific network or specific event, and you go back a week with 20 accounts, like that will be live within a few hours to a day. So it varies depending on the size of the network and the amount of historical data that you want.
Okay, terrific. Thanks for that. And next, I think we may have touched on this a bit, but I think they're looking for a little more detail about, is the data pulled in real time?
The data at this point, as of right now, we're pulling it once a day and then enriching all that data. So we're expecting a 24-hour cadence right now. We have the ability to go faster, and that's just a factor of cost and price. So a lot of it with TikTok and Instagram, the reason why, and YouTube, that we're not going, in real time is that data, posts do go a lot slower than you'd imagine from like a Twitter feed. So our goal is to make sure that we're not necessarily looking for what's happening in real time. We want to understand what's happening and what will happen based on the influence, the narratives, the content that's going viral, to better understand not necessarily what's happening at this moment, but what's going to be happening and talked about over the next week, the next month. So we're really looking at more of a macro view of narratives rather than real time. But again, if we can always go faster if we need to.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that. Next question is, do you ingest structured or unstructured data, or both?
Right now, I'd say with social media, it's semi-structured data. At a-Creet with our AI platform, we're able to ingest both structured and unstructured data. I think what we had on that last slide of bring your own data, I think that's something where we're really excited with. And the goal with these narratives over time, especially, is to say, okay, here's the narratives. And then when you do have your own internal structured data, we also have other areas where we bring in structured data as an ability to support these predictions of what goes viral. And you can tell based on the structured data. Right now, you can imagine it is as all the structured data within social media is likes and followers and number of comments, favorites, shares, all of that is the structured data that we use. And then the unstructured data is all of the content, the multimodal content that the agent's using to play off of each other to say, okay, when this content's going viral based on the unstructured data, how does that, or what is this unstructured data connected to the structured data as a way to create these predictions?
Okay, got it. Data, let's see, the questions keep coming in. So does the platform have alerts for things or topics that I care about?
Yes, well, not quite yet. I think right now, what we will have for alerts are going to be the reports that are going out, and what we're working on is somewhat of a next generation type of alert, is your ability, and we should have this also ongoing in the first quarter, the ability to talk to your agents that you have. So it's not just a chat bot that's able to answer questions, but you'll have the ability to tell your agent to remember certain things and to have to perform certain actions, like when this type of narrative around a Pentagon explosion happens, or if this Ukrainian disinformation network is talking about US weapons, such as these types of weapons, send me an alert. And that's where we want to get to more customized notifications based on your tacit knowledge easily within the chat feature. So that's something that we'll have in the upcoming releases that we have.
Okay. Next question, can your data pull be traced back to you?
No. All of our data extraction is coming from a proxy network of over 80 million different proxies across different proxy servers, as well as our nature of scraping data where we have to. None of it is attributable back to the source of who's extracting it.
Got it. The one piece I would add to that, as well for the security component of the collection is for government users, the system will be hosted on AWS GovCloud to ensure security compliance with government standards. And then to Alex's point, the non-attribution through the 80 million proxies is our technique that we've used to ensure that it can't be traced back to the originator of the data collection. So that very good question there. Next one is, how do you find relevant content when algorithms influence what content people see on socials? And right now, that's our last question that I see. But I'll repeat that one again. How do you find relevant content when algorithms influence what content people see on socials?
I think that's a great question, and something I'm so glad it was asked, because I forgot to really mention that during my demo. That's the reason why we built Argus Social. This is our work. We've been doing social media intelligence work for the past 6 years, and we've been able to see this shift from text-based temporal feeds to really brought on by TikTok, algorithmic-based feeds based on what users have done in the past. Makes it really difficult to understand what's going on at that moment in the specific area. That's why some of our commercial customers call it burner accounts, where they create specific accounts on these social media platforms that only look at one thing specifically. So the music industry, they force these accounts to just focus on music. What we're doing is allowing you to do that via Argus Social by sidestepping those algorithms, to find the people that post about the content that you care about. And on the other side of it, for creators, the creators that want to go viral and continue to perform well on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, it's by giving the algorithm what it wants. So they tend to talk about the same thing consistently all the time. And by these agents able to map out those networks in that specific area, you can sidestep the inability to understand what's going on by constantly monitoring those networks that are promoting that type of information.
Okay, terrific. Okay, I think that's all the questions that we currently have. So we'll hold here for just a moment. For any last final questions, we can take those. And again, for anyone that is interested in learning more about the platform, you're certainly welcome. We can set up an additional call or a demonstration with yourself and anybody else in your team that you'd like to bring on now that you've kind of had a bit of an introduction to the platform. And then we can talk about trial access as well. We'd be happy to do that. But the development of the platform has moved very quickly, leveraging the work that we've done for commercial use. And it's interesting, from the company's standpoint, the level of interest that we've seen in the commercial side for this capability as well, in terms of brand reputation management, very similar to monitoring the information environment, just as we're talking about for these defense and government applications. But we'd love to have further conversations with anyone on those topics. I think that's about it that we currently have for today. So we look forward to the next opportunity to give you an update on further development of the capability. And we appreciate your time today for attending this demonstration. And with that, Brian, I will hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful demo. I was personally amazed seeing it, so really glad I got to see it. I hope everybody in the webinar got to see it and enjoyed and found it very interesting and fascinating. We just, in terms of housekeeping, we will be sending out the recording of this early next week. So if any of you want to review this, you're happy to do that. Sorry, there's a dog where I am. Anyway, so that's it. If anybody's interested in hearing more about a-Creet, please reach out to jason.kirby@a-Creet.ai or sales@a-Creet.ai. We will include this contact info in the follow-up email. So in case you didn't get a chance to jot that down, you will be able to reach out. And a-Creet team, looks like some people are interested in even working for you. As you see in the last comment, someone asked if you're hiring. Anyway, so thank you so much, everybody. You could also catch a-Creet pitching at a Future of Computing showcase that DTech Showcase is holding on November 29th. They're going to be among companies with futuristic computing technologies, pitching in front of a group of investors, corporate stakeholders, as well as federal stakeholders. And you can see, get some more of them there. So again, thank you so much, everybody in the audience, and especially a huge thank you to the a-Creet team for that great presentation and the wonderful product that you've been developing. And definitely looking forward to seeing what else comes in store from what you develop. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. And feel free to email me. Thanks, everyone, for your time today.